Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the reward card set within Splinterlands. We've been in the Rebellion reward card set for quite a while, and we are talking about getting a new one soon. I don't know if it's days or weeks, but I don't think it's months away. And it's the big question is whether or not this next set will be soulbound, meaning it is locked to your account when you earn it, and will remain locked, untradeable, unsellable, unrentable until such time that you unlock it, paying a fee for that, or whether it'll just be open for trading and selling immediately, as is done currently with the foundation set. And so that's the big topic of conversation that I want to address today, and I'm going to reference the recent town hall that Splinterlands walked us through. So if that sounds interesting, stick around and let's get into it. Okay, so Matt did talk about this in the recent town hall. This is from August 20th, I think, actually. And Matt, there's a minute here that's queued up where Matt's gonna address the topic of the next Soulbound, actually the next reward card set. And again, there's an openness. I want to listen to the language he's using with respect to the openness about making it not soulbound, because it isn't the case that he's saying for sure they will be unlocked, or that they will be not soulbound. It's like there's a willingness to look at community sentiment. Let's hear the exact language and let's try and pull it apart a little bit so we can better understand the heart of what Splinterlands or the Steam Monsters company is thinking for this. Okay, so it's a minute long, and then we'll come back for comments.
To come out in the not too distant future. The team is working on a new reward set. So, people have been saying that, hey, Frontier mode's awesome. There's all these new cards and everything, and Glint is kind of boring. Yeah, well, we haven't had new stuff in the Glint shop for a long time. So soon there's going to be a brand new reward set in the Glint shop. We've been discussing with a lot of people whether or not that needs to be soulbound or not. That's something I'm sure there may be questions about. We can talk more in the Q&A if people want to talk more about that. But overall, now that we've have a different stance on bots, and the game works very differently than it has in years past, there may not be the need for soulbound cards as we're kind of seeing for Frontier mode. So that was sort of a test bed, you could say. So there's all sorts of ideas of whether some cards are soulbound, some are not. Maybe it's just easier to make them tradable. Or much less expensive, or maybe not soulbound at all. I don't know. That's part of the whole thing that we're working on, and we're going to be using a lot of community feedback and input on that. But my overall.
So he said we're open to making them not soulbound. We're taking community sentiment and feedback. He said, I think he gave 3 different possible selections for what could come, which is, I guess, to say another way of saying 3 different possible things they've already considered or begun considering. He talked about not making them soulbound at all. So the new approach is you unlock them when you play them. And that would be consistent with what we see with the Frontier mode. The Frontier mode in Splinterlands has been very successful, wildly successful, I would argue, and it's really drawing a lot of attention and eyeballs. They said in that same town hall that the Frontier mode is attracting more players daily than all other modes combined. That means survival, wild, and modern. So there's more attention being paid to Frontier than there is to these other sets. Now, it is true that Frontier is free to play, and so that's, of course, opening doors to a wider audience, but it's really important to see that even though the doors are opened, it's not a given that people will walk through the open doors. They are walking through, they are playing, and in large part, I would argue it's because of these daily rewards that are possible, that are immediately unlockable, that are yours. Here's my history, some of my results actually earlier today. These are things that I unlocked, and you can see these are cards that I can immediately trade, and these are just commons. I didn't get particularly lucky today, but these commons have a US dollar valuation. I could sell those immediately if I wanted to. I want them, so I didn't, but it is really important when you think about attracting a broader and broader audience. And the significance of growing our player base, when you recognize those factors, it's so cool that these carry a US dollar tradable value. You earn them through play, you can sell them if you like. That will attract player base. It is attracting player base. And so this has been a test case, he said, Frontier mode. This has been like a sample to give us could we explore soulbound reward cards? What would happen if we did? And he hinted at things have changed, and so since we went to soulbound reward cards, he was talking about the way we track accounts and how we discourage bots botting accounts, particularly in modern league, and and maybe in tournaments and other places too. But the point is, the team feels more confident and capable within the structure of how our game exists now, that issuing non-soulbound reward cards is possible, feasible, reasonable. And that, some of the concerns that came out of giving away free reward cards through play in the past, some of those concerns, like for instance, bots extracting tons of those cards and then selling them to the marketplace and driving down card valuations, all of which you could make a complicated argument for how it wasn't entirely bad, but ultimately it caused some net negatives to the game and the ecosystem, which he's saying he's hinting we've largely resolved those, or we believe we have. And so we're considering, that's the foundation on which we are saying to ourselves, maybe we could go back to a place of non-soulbound status or non-soulbound rewards. And here's just the day before that's rewards while I'm talking. And let's grab a couple more. Let's grab a big one. Here's a 7. And so he said, he made that argument that things are a bit different. That the non-soulbound rewards are attractive and drawing attention to the game. That's good. And we think the systems in which that the game is operating have changed that make it more feasible for us to offer rewards like that are not soulbound. So that's the foundation for the further conversation as to why we go forward with it. And then he said there were, I think, 3 different ways we could explore it. He said, just make them not soulbound at all, like these cards. They're not soulbound in any way. I don't pay any sort of fee to unlock this card. I don't pay any sort of fee to make it tradable, transferable. It is mine as soon as I earn it, and I earn it through effort and time and attention. And so he said that's option, he didn't really say option 1, 2, 3, but that was one of the options that he listed and said we're considering. He also talked about some of them might be unlocked and others might be locked. Now, would that be, legendaries are too powerful and they have to be unlocked? Would that mean, commons and rares are immediately unlocked because they're relatively ineffective or less powerful? I don't imagine. He didn't give clarity there. I'm speculating. I would argue that that's probably not the most likely sort of line in the sand. I bet if we're going to say some are locked and some are unlocked, we're talking about, modern rank play unlocks soulbound reward cards. Why? Because modern rank play is done peer-to-peer, human-to-human. There is no bots allowed in the modern league. And so participation within this league should be dependent upon a human player behind the wheel. Whereas with Wild, we know that you can bot in this league. There's no problem with it. It's permissible. It's allowable. It's it's just part of how it's designed. But maybe that's a line in the sand for how they want to delineate where soulbound reward cards would be earned, unlocked or locked. Again, I'm speculating, but I bet that is a line in the sand they are considering, because again, the real issue, which went unsaid but was implied, is that the old issue with cards being not locked before was how bots extracted them. If we're talking about offering them in the context of a league, modern, that is not bottable, or Frontier, which is theoretically, is it bottable? I actually don't know if it's bottable. I don't think it is. I would argue that the non-soulbound issuance is more and more feasible in those contexts, particularly modern, right? So I would argue that could be option number 2 for how we issue soulbound reward cards. And I think he also said that they could be issued for much cheaper. So when we come into items and we go to cards and we go to rewards, this is my reward cards. So if I wanted to unlock a card, let's look at this card. This is 1 CC or BCX of a legendary reward card. If I want to release the soulbound card, at this time it's a 20 times modifier. So the burn rate times 20. And so it's actually a lot of DEC. It's 10 US dollars or 10,000 DEC. It's more than 10 US dollars because DEC price points, or it's less than $10. But 10,000 DEC is a lot of DEC to unlock 1 CC of a card, of which I need 11. So I need, 80, 90 US dollars to unlock a max copy of the Surly Drunk. That seems kind of crazy, considering under the best of circumstances, I don't think this card would sell for half of that, right? So unlocking just seems largely irrelevant. And it's almost the only reason one would unlock in this time would be if there was a really particularly powerful card, probably. You know, if there was like, if you wanted to argue, I would say of these cards on the screen, Gallicus is maybe the one that I use the most often. And so maybe it's arguable that this card is meaningful, desirable, powerful, impactful. If you want to argue those things, you might argue that would be a card the cards that you perceive to be most powerful and impactful would be the ones you would be most likely to pay that fee. Why? Because if you think they're powerful and impactful, others probably do too, and maybe therefore it carries a higher sale value than the release soulbound cost, right? That's the question. Otherwise, you just won't. Why would you release it? Why would you pay the fee to release it and make it tradable if you're not planning to trade it, if you're not planning to sell it, if you don't see an angle and a pathway toward profitability? So maybe the fee just needs to be reduced. Maybe it's not a 20 times multiplier. Maybe it's 110,000 to get a max legendary unlocked as a reg foil too. The gold foils would be even more. And so it's a lot of money. And maybe the question is like, this 20 times modifier was primarily a concern or a consideration, or, it was instituted because we recognized that there was a larger number of bots playing our game, and we wanted to really regulate how many of these cards made it to marketplace, and thereby create a reduction in supply and therefore sustainability on the valuation of those cards. That's at the core why we would do something like this. We want to keep tradable supply low, because we want to make the value of an asset high. But maybe we don't need to do that again because the bot situation is different. And so those were the three things that he spoke about or hinted about, with some of my extra speculation on what he exactly meant and why he thinks now is sort of the time to start exploring this. I am convinced from community sentiment this is something that we deeply desire. I know I desire it. I want it. I think, as we've seen the unfolding of Frontier mode and the foundation set, and how entertaining and fun this can be, and how I'm playing it every single day, and I think many of you are too, I think this points us to the fact that, now is the time. There's a desire, there's a thirst even, and a real excitement about Splinterlands rewards again. And it's just these. It's like I could rip a legendary in my daily rewards. That's kind of cool. I could rip a black foil in my weekly rewards because there's weekly drops as well. Those are my cards. I can do with them what I want. And people are 100%, there's like definitely no question about it, an excitement level about that. And I think that is worth leaning into, because we want we want the attention to grow. We want the focus and the player base to keep growing and growing. If we are attracting players with this new rule, with this new mode, and if the reward structure within this mode is key and pivotal for how we're attracting new players, then we should try and replicate that reward structure as often as we can, as reasonably as can, as easily as we can. If we could apply just a mild, modern, and maybe even wild, that seems like an obvious next step. And maybe the obvious, if I was to really put like sort of a recommendation together, I might say, with all the notes and thoughts I've expressed here today, that we've seen it succeed in Frontier. And we should probably now test it out again in Modern, because again, we know that, or we believe that Modern is peer-to-peer. We believe that it's human to human. We believe that there's no one botting, and we are monitoring those accounts in the play to see if there are indications of botting. And all of that creates a threshold of expectancy or reasonable expectancy around this being a real human to human experience, and therefore feels like it is the next logical step in exploring unlocked reward cards. I think growing Frontier and exploring the player base growth that allows, and then bringing it to Modern, is the next logical step. I hope that's what we do. I don't think making them I don't know if I would say that making them free and wild would be broken or bad, but I simply would say that's not the next step. The next step is to think through Modern first. And finally, it might be the case that we expand it all the way. But I think, again, the next logical step is probably simply to Modern. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree. What are your thoughts on the topic? Have an amazing day. God bless.